If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM.
Hello, good people, and welcome to the last of the Millennials, We Probably Right, the show that tackles topics on Black culture, popular culture, relationships, and that damn unspoken Black family dynamic.
Because you may have thought it, but we damn sure gonna say it. So join us on this journey as we share perspectives that you can relate to.
I'm Farrelly.
Kendra.
And I'm Kelsey.
And today, y'all, we have an amazing topic. You know, we were sitting around as we were planning for this show, and Kendra and myself, we out here in these single streets, right? Trying to make love happen. And Kelsey has been so lucky to find the love of her life and be in a great marriage. But we want to talk about today dating versus courting and what's the difference. And so later on in the show, we'll have some guests come on and share their perspectives as single people. We'll have Ashley and O'Rock, and we'll discuss the ins and out of what it's like to date in the 2000s, but it's actually 2020s. So what is the difference between dating and courting?
So I'll just say in 2020, 2021, there's no difference. The lines are definitely blurred. But like let's define dating and courting based off Webster, the Urban Dictionary, which is the one that I live by. And then like what do we think that it is? So Kelsey, for you, how do you define dating versus courting?
So are we talking pre-marriage, back in my hotel days, or, married days, and what I view it as. Because back in my day, you're exclusive. Back when I was on the dating scene, we're exclusively talking to each other. We are 2 steps to we're really in a relationship and this is our title. But if I see it from today's perspective, y'all just out here like we just be cooling it. We don't go together. We just doing our thizzle, okay?
So that's for dating or courting?
That's for dating. If I were to say what courting was, again, back before being married, when I was allowed to start, quote unquote, courting at 16. So I was, point of clarity, I was raised by my aunt, who's very much so old school. So I could not be seen with a boyfriend out in public without supervision. I couldn't go to his house. He could come to my house, but we would have to stay in the living room. We were always kind of like a suitor, pretty much to see if you guys are going to make it happen, but under the watchful eye of a person. So I actually experienced courting in my day.
So does courting fade away though after you become an adult? Because like that's your experience at 16, where you have to, be monitored, and you can't do now. Like when you grown, all bets are off. So you can because in my mind, courting is obsolete. That shit don't exist. Like.
It's dead now. It's definitely dead because ultimately, although I was supposed to be courting, I was, fast as a run of hot as soup. I was loving the boys, and the boys were loving me. But when it came to
run that back, you were fast as a what?
I said, listen, I was fast as a run of hot as soup, baby. I was. The people was loving me and I was loving them. But when I was taking serious, like, I really want to like this boy, we courted. And of course I had to present him to my family. He presented himself to my family. I will not mention his name because he is raggedy. And should we pop off like we going to, he will never. Okay, but listen, yeah. But in school, it was kind of like we date between lunch, you know? And I had this idea for the roughneck, thugged out that I could never ever bring home. But now dating and courting, they are vastly different because one is obsolete, is dead and gone, it's not here. And I also don't think dating is a thing either. But that's just my personal opinion.
Let's get into the UDD. This is the Urban Dictionary definition. The Urban Dictionary definition of dating, and this is kind of how I've experienced it. Dating is where two people are attracted to each other. They spend time together to see if they can even stand to be around each other most of the time. If this is successful, they develop a relationship. And although sometimes a relationship develops anyway, if the people can't find anybody else to date them. So that's a whole nother can of worms, because even in my dating, especially online, I have come across men who have the expectation that you're not even, in the selection process of anybody else. So naturally, you're going to have some type of relationship if you're choosing to date that way. But courting is definitely gone. We're not doing that. We're meeting up. Like, what's up? Let's meet at the bar. Let's meet some drinks. And I think especially when you enter, when you add the online phase of it, the game definitely changes, and it opens your access to people across the world. That's why we have shows like 90 Day Fiance and
shit.
What's the other shows about?
Married at First Sight.
Married at First Sight. I don't watch any of those shows.
What's the one about the jail with the prison bays? Like, that's how
Love After Lockup.
That's how that shit exists, because people are literally getting into relationships with people they would have never come across outside of their living radius. Because, back in the day, you only met people that were in your hometown. If you went to the mall, you really had to be on the scene. But now you just log in and boom, you could talk to Thomas in Cali. You could talk to Thomas in the Virgin Islands, Thomas in Africa, Thomas in Europe. You could talk to Thomas.
Thomas in Africa is going to scam your ass. FYI. So be careful about
They all the same Thomas. They all the same Thomas.
They all the same Thomas. And be careful, because me and Farrelly's stepdaddy is African, okay?
Listen, I love him.
But no, so I definitely think courting, they probably should even remove that word, because it's not even a thing. So
some people, Kendra, though, I know you said you think dating doesn't exist, but
courting
date.
exists.
Courting. Well,
Kendra says she says courting doesn't exist. I say dating doesn't exist. And I think it is because of online accesses. Because I think you fall in love with the highlight that people present of them. So to me, courting kind of lets me know if I want to even date you. Like, do I like you? Do I have? But everybody's going to highlight themselves in the perfect light. And then when I start getting to like you, it's like, I don't even like you like that. Like, you know?
So I'm just going to recommend a vocabulary shift, right? Because to me,
definitely
courting is talking, right? People are like, if we talked on the phone, we did text messages, Facebook Messenger, you in my DMs, we talked. We didn't go together, because people love to stake claim on just because we exchanged a few messages that we used to talk. And that's all that means. Because some people, when I get into a situation, I'm always trying to clarify. We are, evaluating each other. This is an interview. And we're going to see if you make it to round two, right? Those who don't qualify, we done. And so if you was just in that applicant pool and you didn't make it on the round two, we was just talking, right? So we talk, and then we spend time getting to know each other. And then when I find out who the real you is, I figure out if I can deal with you or not, and then we have to make a decision together that we're not going to date each other exclusively. Because while I am getting to know you, I'm also getting to know somebody else and maybe 3 or 4 other people.
Okay, but you know,
So how-
that's because even the way you just described it, it fits both definitions as they're written. I think the issue comes into play is that culturally, in this day and time, that's not really how we don't operate per the definition, but we actually do, because the definition of courting per Urban Dictionary is that you develop a deep relationship with someone with a view to seeing if marriage is right, if that's what you want, right for that couple, without the complexity. This is where it gets wrong, though, of sexual intimacy, because, you know, it's not a lot of people abstaining while they're courting or, you know, in a relationship, because we definitely fucking. But
Kendra, that's where I think that the ones who are abstaining are now trying to bring courting back onto the scene. They're trying to bring a sense of normalcy of, you know, some people who believe that, you know, having sex with people is just like soul ties and, you know, we are connected. Some people are not able to easily cut the charge and just, you know, cut the cord and just say, this is just strictly what we're doing.
Right.
Ultimately, you find that a lot in females who attach emotional ties with sex. And those who are abstaining, I think, fit more so in that courting spirit to say, you know what, I have more to offer than just sex, and you have to see me beyond that. And that's why you need to seek me before you can get this cookie. Okay? It's a big thing. Okay?
But
it's real.
I don't know, because sometimes the way the world is set up now, right?
The way the world is set up, y'all, is thotting, popping, and it's like, what's up?
Pop, lock it, drop it. Like, you have to know, as a single person, you have needs, right? And so for me,
fulfill y'all needs.
I mean, sometimes you want a warm body, right?
Okay.
You need somebody who can warm the bed up, right? And then you gotta go. But sometimes it's, you know, the word situationships, right? Because we don't want to commit to something, but we do want to commit to something, right? And I think a lot of us have accepted situationships because it reminded me of one of the songs on Jasmine Sullivan's last project. It was like,
a situationship is nothing but bullshit. A situationship.
It's not. I've had one for like 10 years.
But listen, but here's why.
Cool.
Here's why. We're doing away with one thing to replace it with something else. A situationship is nothing but a glorified way of saying, I know we agreed to just be fuck buddies, but I ended up catching feelings and I can't tell you that. So we're just gonna be in this situationship where I play like I don't really care what you do because we're having sex and I've emotionally got tied to you and I wasn't supposed to do that. And I violated our code. So now we're just gonna continue it as a situationship. That's what happens where a person, and you see it often more times than not, where it is a woman who is with this guy who may have even told her like, this is what it is. We just doing a do. And she's like, I can handle it. And somewhere along the line, either he or she, most of the time it has been the she, who can no longer uphold that agreement and has caught some sort of feelings. But because he said, I don't want to be in a relationship with you, she has now diminished her standard to say, okay, we can be in a situationship just to still have a piece of him. It happens more times than we like to admit.
It does. But I disagree with the first half, because women in this day and age are a little bit more married to other things, like their careers, their freedoms. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they are settling because the man is not offering more. It just means, listen, I'm not really trying to be out here sleeping with 37 people and trying to figure out these options. I do want consistent, dedicated dick or sex or whatever. So we're going to be in this situationship, and we have this understanding that, you know, you can do whatever you want outside of me, but we have this situation and understanding together that this is where we're going to meet. And it will set boundaries or consistency, and we're not really going out. We're not really doing anything else. Like Frilly was saying, it's just a warm body. And that's a lot.
But if I have to put all of those stipulations on it, Kendra, like you just said, like I think that's a point of contingency. That's where it changes the agreement. If it is that I just want to have sex with you in the situationship, that's my agreement. But for you to say, we're going to agree to not do this, not go out, not do this, you might as well be in a relationship if you're going to put all of those stipulations on there. Like if you just, now if I say I don't want to have sex.
Prevent you from being in a relationship, because now it's going to be what you said. It's, I'm just settling for this, when actually I don't want to go out with you. I don't want to take you to the family. I don't want to introduce you to my kids. I don't want you to do any of that. All I want is to have sex. So if that means that you're not staying the night, several nights a week, it's only on the weekends, like you have to have boundaries in any relationship as to how to define what that thing is. Otherwise,
so it's now just a glorified friends with benefits?
No, because we gotta be friends.
Let me tell you, because this is not a new concept.
Right.
Y'all probably got somebody in your family who is not married, but they your Uncle Ray Ray or your Auntie Susie. And they been together for 20 years and he still ain't married her.
And still,
my Uncle George to this day date this woman named Carol. Her name is Carol. Listen, Carol, I swear to God, got a husband somewhere, and she been around since my whole 30 years. Okay?
So it's just evolved.
They ain't never lived together, nothing. That's his main bottom one, you know?
It's just evolved, and because this is an unspoken Black dynamic, and I'm sure it happens in other cultures, but I remember having all these uncles, right? Or Mr. I mean, I ain't gonna say
grandma too. Grandma friend, yeah. Mr. James about to come over.
Mr. James.
Listen, Mr. James.
Mr. James.
And everybody gotta go in the room.
Right, and he don't even live there, but Mr. James come by every Sunday after church faithfully and got a seat at the table and gets a plate and goes home, and everybody be like, that ain't my grandma boyfriend.
And it is. Mm-hmm. Just if you listen.
And it is.
That was
if you listen to, and he left a little bit of money too, but we ain't gonna talk about that.
Listen.
He left a little bit of money.
Listen.
Okay, a little something to help you out.
I mean, so I think really, I know the topic again, if you're just catching this, is dating versus courting and what's the difference. And so far, we started out thinking that dating and courting didn't exist, but in a way it kind of does. So with me, I'm a serial dater. And I don't put all my eggs in one basket, because you never know when you're gonna drop that basket, because niggas ain't shit. And
but hoes and tricks.
And when I say niggas, I'm talking about males and females. Okay,
I know some trash bag ass females for real.
People just because they don't have to stick and stay, right? People's like these 20-year marriages, like some of the stuff that our grandparents and their parents went through, like we don't do it because we could just move on to the next one. And our culture has been like, it ain't nothing to cut that bitch off, snip snip hoe, right? And we have embraced that mentality, like what you want, do somebody else will do, and they'll do it better,
and for nothing.
Okay. And that
and now somebody always wants something. No, I think what we gotta, this is the sweet spot with millennials, because we were taught one thing. We were raised in the do as I say, not as I do. But we were also still raised and reared under a generation who had common sense, right? But it worked. And now it works in our favor because we're able to see that some of the stuff that they did just did not make sense and they lack common sense. Like, how many of y'all got an uncle or aunt who really ain't your granddaddy child, but he dare not say that, right? So I think our grandparents had to stay out of necessity, not desire. But it won't nothing for your grandma to have another baby by another man, and her husband won't go say nothing because she'll probably split his head, right?
Because
it was definitely. I think it was both ways.
That's a whole.
It's a whole nother
about the unspoken Black family dynamics, because that is a whole nother can of worms that nobody want to talk about. And I hate when I see things about people don't stay married anymore, or what happened to the 50-year marriages. But I'll tell you what happened. Bitches started working.
Hello?
Independent. We got other options.
And we stopped being barefoot and pregnant for 20 years.
Right.
Think about the families who have 16 and 17 children. You were pregnant most of your life.
So not married because she needed to marry. That's not the
It was out of need. So that is where the whole marriage concept thing went. But let's be very much so clear. Those 50 and 40-year marriages that we glorify, or people like to glorify, were very much so unfaithful and most likely out of need
and abusive.
They didn't abusive.
That's the key.
Okay. And it was just they had no means to leave.
Right. So, but in this time, like, so now that we've cleared it up, so we need to redefine courting because, you know, I think the end part of that definition is removing sexual intimacy or with, because everybody's not abstaining. More people are not abstaining than are. I think so. I think that's what makes that definition more current to today's date. But then it's like, okay, so now we're courting or dating, and now you kind of add in the online factor. You got to add in like what's hookup culture, the dating part of get to the bag, the come up, dating for the come up. Because I, even being like on dating apps online, I've come across men who have said that in women's profiles, they have their Cash App, they Venmo, they PayPal. To talk to me, you gotta Cash App me. And that's another thing on dating apps. And then it's like trying to like cipher through all of that. How do you even get to the place where you can see somebody and say that I think they're the one in this current culture? And I think this is going to be a great perspective that our guests are going to be able to kind of add to that, because they're all actively doing those things and doing them online, or just meeting people regularly out on the street or through, you know, I know somebody for you. But these are all things that are now a part of the dating culture of 2021. So I think that'll be interesting to get the perspective of the men and women that we're going to have on the show today.
Are talking about dating versus courting and what's the difference. And we have some special guests with us today. We have Ashley and O-Rock, and they're going to share with us their perspective of what it is like to date in the 2020s. Ashley?
Hello, my name is Ashley. I'm from Sex with Ashley. I am a sex writer and influencer, and I am happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Ashley. We appreciate you. O-Rock, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. The name is O-Rock. I go by O-Rock twice on all of my social media platforms. So just happy to be here. I'm out of Texas, a little country, a little southern biscuit to, you know, how we date and how we get down. But happy to be here. Thank you all for having me.
All right. Thank you. So guys, so, you know, previously we were talking about dating versus courting, and is there really even a difference? So we got into that. So with Ashley, we want to talk a little bit about what dating looks like in 2021 and what that culture looks like, from hookup culture, the get the bag, the come up dating apps, and how do you know when the person that you've been communicating with is possibly the one? So if we want to start with hookup culture and what that looks like in 2021, do you have any experience with that? What is your perspective on the hookup culture and the get the bag, the come up dating?
I think dating as of lately is more, and when I say lately, I mean like several years, is more so based on hookup, really, because like you have sites like Tinder and other sites who are basically hookup sites. They're dating sites, but really they're hookup sites. Really, you don't think so?
No. That's what y'all use it for. Like,
yeah. I definitely.
I was told Tinder was a hookup site.
It's not.
I was told Plenty of Fish was. Like, a lot of my friends, because I do not have any experience in this, Plenty of Fish is aka Plenty of Fucking. I mean, and that's what kind of happens, you know?
So let's be very clear. Hookup culture is not new. Grandma, Auntie Gladys and them, they've been hooking up. It's just more forward now and visible. and the net is so much bigger because you can hook up with Thomas and Callie and y'all can have a little weekend fling. It's not new. It's just something that, that's another one of those unspoken things. Because Auntie Gladys been hooking up with Thomas around the corner for years and nobody talked about it.
I mean, it was a whole song about it. Me and Mrs. Jones, baby. They had a thing going on. And they met every day at 6 o'clock. So it's definitely not new.
What's M to me, you, me, and he? What we gonna do? Baby. It's not new. It's here.
So actually, you're using those sites as hookup apps, basically.
I'm not using the sites for anything. Okay, let's clarify that. I'm saying that the sites are typically used for, from my understanding, I don't do online dating sites. I don't like them. I don't like the whole small talk of them, so I don't do online dating sites. But when I was years ago, I was using them for hookup sites because that's the impression that I was under, that's what Tinder and all that stuff was for. So that, and typically the people on there, I mean, after you talk a while, they want to hang out or come to the house or some shit. So that's typically what they do.
Yeah, I'm a proponent of the dating apps. I think they're fun, right? I think it's like window shopping for a mate. It's kind of weird. Kelsey was like, nah. Yeah, it's something about the swiping that's pretty cool. There's some research on that, but yeah, like hookup culture. I hate to kind of put hookup culture in a box, or if you will, because the idea of hooking up is kind of like the shortest distance between two lines, if you will. Like, we all thrive for human connection. We want to connect with somebody. And sometimes that connection, depending on what kind of energy is happening in that connection, leads to like, yo, I need to touch you right now. Like, we got to make some moves right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Like right now, like right now. You want to get out of here? You want to leave? So I like, it just so happens that it's the hookup, but depending on what happens in that interaction, that determines what you want to do later. Like, do I want to call you back? Is just going to be just this night, or, can you hold me a little longer? Depending on what
like
happens.
A song go rock.
I'm telling you.
Right. It depends on what happens. But I think that's the natural course of engagement in dating, either way it goes, right? It's like, sex for, I'm gonna just speak for me, right? And some of my circle, sex for guys is kind of like the litmus test. That's how we know, like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that was nice. I gotta see you tomorrow. Or, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, it's nice meeting you at the club. Okay, yeah, have a good life. And move on.
So as we navigate that, because like dating up or the come up, that's not new. Like, people have been, you marry into a more affluent family, like that's not new. But get in the bag where on these dating apps, women, I don't know if it's for men, they're posting their Cash App link. Like, if you want to talk to me, you got a $40 me. If you want to have a conversation, if you want to see me, you need to send me some money. Like, how does that affect the hookup or just the culture with online dating apps?
I think the whole women posting their Cash App to talk to people is dumb. I've always thought it was dumb. Now I'm all for marrying up. I mean, that's the whole point, premises of getting married, right? Because marriage is a business agreement first. It just now recently became something about love. But before, people, you had dowries. It like, you marry my daughter, you get this. That's the whole premise of getting married. But to talk to me, I gotta pay you. Like,
but people are paying.
I think that came along like now, where you see your Cardi B's and your Megans and your Sweeties who are, telling you, don't let a nigga waste your time, get that cash. And let me tell you, a lot of people have been giving it out for free for a long time, So I think a lot of people now find it that if I'm liking this guy and I'm having sex with him and I'm not getting any benefit, I'm a simp, so to say, right? So now they feel like they have to, put this in here to feel some sort of validity. Because I just think about, my grandma who had the man chasing her and she won't dolled up, and he would come by on Sunday. We had a deacon in church. They was there throwing money at her, and baby girl was not doing any of that. There was no Cash App. There was no nothing. She was not doing anything to make herself be anything that she wasn't. And so now I think women who are influenced of what's happening in media and entertainment feel like if a guy wants to, really court me, he gotta show that bag first. And I think, like Ashley said, it's stupid and it's very much so tacky. Because your baby daddy before that probably was out here nickeling and diming for a long time and didn't have none of that stuff that you're requiring of the next man to even get to know you.
And I do think, like, pussy ain't free, right? So whenever you're engaging,
I know you can say pussy, girl. Go ahead.
I was just like, what? Pussy ain't free?
Welcome to Sex and Ashley world.
Like,
I ain't got no tact. With that being said, I think whenever you are engaging in a sexual relationship, unless it's something like, if this is strictly just first with benefit thing, it should be some type of benefit. The benefit doesn't necessarily have to be monetary per se, but it should be a benefit. I shouldn't be fucking you and nothing, and I'm not getting any type of benefit from it.
So let's note that we haven't even gotten to fucking. This is to talk to me. You have to pay me.
Oh, this is just to converse with me, to call me on the phone?
Yes. So apparently on like these Tinder sites or whatever site, in their bio, that's what it says. There's a Cash App link, and a culture can't exist without two moving parts. So they're getting paid, and that's why this is popular. So then it's like, what has transitioned, like what has happened that this is one thing that's now acceptable and people are now actually paying for it too, because it's like, what is missing that men or women are both paying to just have a conversation? Like, what's missing?
I mean, let's be clear about this. Prostitution is the oldest profession in the book.
Yes.
So maybe they're bringing that back. Unfortunately, I can't relate to the dating apps because I'm not on them. So I'll yield that conversation to you all.
What's the question, all right?
Because at first I was like rocking with him. I was like, oh, okay, cool, Uber ride. All right, that sounds good. You pay, dinner. Okay, cool, that sounds good. He was like, wait a minute. If I'm not interested, you gotta pay. If I am interested, hey, all of that goes out the window. Like that sound. It sounded like the contract changed in mid-contract, bro. So are you saying that in order for somebody to get your time that you were not particularly interested in, they got to drop some dimes in the Cash App?
If I'm not looking at you, the price just went up. So
and that's that on that.
Ding, ding, ding. Because you want my time. I'm not looking for you. Like, come on.
Oh, man.
But all right, I mean, what about?
And I know it's unconventional,
but what about flights?
But I have a question. If I know I'm not looking at you, why even entertain you for the coin? Like, if I don't like you, I don't like you. No amount of money is going to change that. Well, because I lied.
Because they're interested.
Well, I was saying people look different on social media.
Yeah. But then it's not even.
And I guess money can. Yeah, you might not be ugly, you might just be poor.
But then it's not even new. Like, because think back, Kelsey, like when you were in school and say a little boy liked you, right? But you had your eyes on somebody else, but he came to school bringing you candy, then stole his mama necklace out the house to give it to you. You might, hey, Tommy, you might look a little bit. That's just, it's not
That's
different.
Love.
When you stealing your mama jewelry. So you can give it to the little girl.
I did have
school.
a boy send his mama $100 bill. She came right to the school and got it.
Well, let me just put you on game, right? So we talked earlier in the podcast about not putting all your eggs in one basket. So the reason why you entertain this person who you're not actually interested in is because sometimes, if you're playing spades, you got these clear things that are definite books. And you got some possibles, right? These people who are chasing you are the possibles in case your definites fall off the board. You still need to have something that you can hop onto that's already cultivated. You don't have to start from scratch. And so when you're building your roster, you have these people in a particular priority set. And so that person who is chasing you, who is probably the person who is treating you the best most times. They're doing everything that you desire, but they're not your number one. They might be number 5. And so those people actually put in the work, but we often overlook them because they're not the person that we want. They want us more. It's not mutual.
Right. They're not really showing up the way, we want them to. But that's not, we kind of manage relationships that way. Like, we have buckets of friends. We have our closest friends or best friends. We have the fun friends or, the professional friends. We have buckets for everybody. So I don't think, dating is removed from that as well. So
the pay to play piece, though, that's the part that makes it quite interesting. It's saying that this one type of investment is an investment that gets you in the door versus the other love languages, if you will. Yeah. But I met a chick, literally just met a chick last week, and we were hanging out, and she was bad, right? So I'm trying to figure out if I can make a play or whatever. And she says, I just moved from Chicago 3 years ago, and I haven't paid for anything that I've done in Houston, including where I live, including my bills, since I've been here, based on the concept that dudes have to pay if they want to engage with me. Right.
So that was the invite for you to make a deposit. Is she grooming you to kind of say, this is what I'm expecting of you? If I'm following, am I tracking correctly?
Oh,
basically, if you
I didn't read it as none of that.
The cost.
Right. Yeah. So basically, I took that as a conversation. Okay.
Nah,
gotcha.
I read it as, thank you for sharing that part of your life. What else can I get to know about you? Right? Because for me, I'm definitely not. I'm broke when it comes to that particular situation, right? Like, I like going on dates. I like extravagant dates. As a matter of fact, I like that to be a whole moment. But the idea of paying to have your time, like, that's not how it's gonna work. Especially when that's not the key to get to healthy relationship, right? As a matter of fact, that can also be linked to a toxic trait, but I don't know about that. But yeah, I mean, I like the concept. I find it curious. I find it very interesting, right? But I'm only curious about it from a philosophical standpoint. I care not to pay for anybody's time like that.
So let me ask this, right? Because to me, it sounds very simple. I'm not going to say these people are sex workers, but most of us do this every day. Do this every day. We exchange our time for money. So in
work and where we show up,
it's one of those things. So if sis is like, I don't know if she actually does work, but it seems like she don't have to, because she has learned how to trade her time for money. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't choose to do it, and maybe I don't have a pool. I haven't found the right set of individuals to fund my life, right? But clearly she's tapped in, and she needs to hold a masterclass, because I think there is, if she can do it, she can teach other people how to do it. And there's somebody who is willing to pay, because people have been paying for sex or romanticism, escorting, all those things. That has been around forever. So I just think, like, maybe for some folks, it's just like, I'm not that guy. You want to go get ice cream and catch a movie, but that's not the relationship I want to have with you.
She like ice cream. What?
I'm not invested. Like, if I just met you, we going for coffee. We're not about to go to get a filet mignon, and I just met you on Facebook Messenger. For what? It's too much. And if okay, something like you subscribe, like somebody been subscribing to the City Girls, like and I'm wondering, like, I get there's a place for that, right? Because if you're a certain person of a certain stature, there are just certain things that if you present to people, they feel like they have to earn you to a certain degree. And there's some people you don't have to earn. I think that's what makes it difficult, right? If you have a high standard and the rest of the world is slide in my DM, send me a photo, send me the link, and we good, people don't really have to try. So if you're looking for something that's more than that, I don't know. There are people, they're out there, but you're going to have to search for them, because it's too easy to get your immediate needs satisfied. So let's talk about dating apps. So I know earlier Ashley said, they hook up apps, but what are some of your favorites that you've had good success on? None. Okay, what about you, O'Rock?
Yeah, and so I started on Tinder, and got addicted to, again, the swiping and all those particular pieces. Yeah, the swipe is kind of fun, right? It's I remember watching the movie Social Network, and of course they say how the whole Facebook came about was it was a matching site, like based on you rank people who live on campus or whatever. And so Facebook Tinder kind of has that feel to it, where it's like, yo, my type, not my type, not my type, not my type, but Tinder for me felt like it was a bit too logarithm-ish, right? Like it felt a bit too like, okay, we're gonna figure out how to get you to spend more money on Tinder, which is probably the purpose of the app anyway. So I had to kind of fall back from Tinder, went to Bumble. I liked Bumble. Bumble was more popular, or for me, a lot of people spoke more highly of Bumble when I was in North Carolina. And so I was like, okay, I'll try Bumble. It's where the girl makes the first move. And I was like, that's not traditional, but let's see what happens. And it was kind of like the same concept, right? I mean, ultimately the woman would make the first move, but you still had to, as the male, in my situation, you still had to really come with it, to keep her engaged. But like now I'm finding that Hinge seems a bit more intentional, right? And I think the more money you pay, the more intentionality you get out of the app, and I'm not paying for none of that, right? So on Hinge as a free app, I feel like Hinge is quite intentional. So I support Hinge only because Hinge is like, yo, we want you to hook up, and our mission is for you to delete the app, right? Find somebody, connect with them, delete the app. So I like that concept. I know that there are other paid apps that probably have far more intentionality and far more matching logarithms behind it. But right now I'm rocking with Hinge.
I think too, for me also, like once I move out of where I'm from, that's probably
definitely
part of the reason. Cause like I do dating apps and they do by location, and I see people I know. So I'm like,
but
so once I moved to another
so
place,
can you not choose other like geographical places in the app to search?
Some of them, no. Some of them is just by your location on your phone, wherever you are at the time.
Yeah, like Tinder has a travel mode, which I think a lot of people find useful depending on what your profession is. So typically who I see using travel mode are like flight attendants, right? Mm-hmm. Who are saying like, yo, I'm going to be in Florida for the weekend. And so let me set my geographical location to Florida because I'm going to be there and I want to connect with some folks. But other people use it as well if you know you're going to have a weekend or a trip, a getaway, or whatever the case.
We don't discuss who you know, right? Because it's like 1 degree of separation from somebody else who either is their friend, their cousin, or they didn't have a sexual relationship with. And I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
But you gotta know.
No, not in the beginning, because I may discount you and miss out on this person because you done slept with everybody in my friend circle, right? And I went to a birthday party several years ago and walked into the room and, oh, I didn't know you knew this person. Oh, there's somebody else. And it's like, hey, nice to meet you. How are you? Like for the first time. And you're in the room like, oh shit, y'all knew each other. So Jesus. I don't need to know. And when you see us on the same street, you need to act like you don't know me, you know?
Yeah, man, I hear the rules, I hear the constructs, but I'm gonna have to disagree in that regard, because I think energy is undeniable, right? Yes. Like and people will follow that energy no matter what the situation is. Like we have these rules of engagement, right? Don't date your friend's ex, and don't talk to we have those rules of engagement, but like sometimes when you connect with a person and their energy is a whole vibe, there's something telling you not to walk away from that, right? And so I think I hear the idea. I've dated somebody that one of my best friends dated, right? And I Ashley's like, oh wow, I've done that, right? Because but it's really about the energy. Now, in counter to you, Farrelly, like I'm very, very open with that though, right? And so I think you got to have a conversation, because if you go into a party, you're going to a party to have a good time, right? You don't want to go to a party, find a corner and chill because you know 4 people in the space, right? If I know 4 people in the space, that means that party is about to be jumping, because we all know how we rock. But at the same time, it depends on who you're working with. It depends on who you're dealing with, right? And some people just are uncomfortable with that. Some people can't be in that same space. And so you have to respect that. But for me, the human thing is very chemical, man. And I think we create a lot of rules to take that beauty away from human engagement. And the truth of the matter is, all of this conversation is all about how we connect, how we go after our human engagement. I think we've kind of made it a science, and it's really not a science. It's really about, when your chemistry touches another person's chemistry and there's an amazing reaction.
So thank you. So let's pivot a little bit and get into like the nature and nurture portion of how we approach dating. So one of the things that most of us have from childhood is we get to look at how the adults that raised us, how they had relationships. and whatever faith that we were immersed in, how, it affects how we approach dating. So let's talk about faith and the relationship examples we had. How does that inform our approach to dating?
Wow. Man, I grew up Baptist, church heavy, right? And so a lot of the rules that we were using to define what relationships were supposed to be were based off of the church rules. And so that was very interesting for me. And then as I grew up, and of course, as I began to challenge my perspectives, my ideologies, and of course, my faith rearing, I became more open to it. And I felt like I grew more open to experiencing people as they are, right? Instead of trying to only take people that fit a certain mold or only experience a person as they come. And so I just say that, one, my household, right? The example that I saw, I felt was very limiting. One, and then two, of course, I felt like faith was also limiting as well. For me, the church I grew up in, right? The household that I grew up in, only because, it's so many billions of people in the world, and there's so many different perspectives. There's so much other energy out there that I think is good to experience just on the idea that, there's so many people who are different.
Okay, Ashley, do you have because I know your story a little bit, but it's not my story to share. So how
what story
you've gone through some transitional phases. I mean, some very big ones too, from being very church heavy and very traditional in your views, and to transition into now sex with Ashley, and let's talk about it.
So, I'm from the South. It's like everybody here. I grew up in a very churchy environment, like church. So at one point in time, Bible Belt. So at one point in time, I was very into the whole purity culture thing. You have sex for marriage and all this other BS. Since then, I have definitely transitioned to a whole new, a new train of thought. So, now I try to help people, women, particularly Black women, to be more liberated and be more free with themselves, and to explore their sex lives. I think though, like for me, my mother is, I grew up in a single parent situation. My mom was divorced, and so she raised me, my brother, and so it was always for her. She always told me men are things like accessories. You need one, but you don't need one. Like, you need to be able to take care of yourself. Always take care of Ashley. That's always what she said. Be able to take care of Ashley, and then you get a man. That's great. If a man goes, that's also great. In the day, you better take care of yourself. So as someone, that's been what has been instilled in me for the 36 years. So like for me, I'm like, I don't look for a man to be able to take care of me. That's never like a thing of mine. It's cool if you can. If you can take care of me, that's so great. But Ashley's always gonna have Ashley taken care of. And if you come here and you have contribute some type of way, cool, but I'm never going to like need you for my existence. And that came from my mom. And so that kind of has it kind of has some negative things with it when it comes to dating, because I'm very independent, and some men take that as negative, because I have this whole, not that I don't need a man, I do need a man, right? I like sex. I like a man to when stuff's broken in the house, to fix it. I like a man to take out the trash. So I do need a man for certain things. I just don't need you for my livelihood. And that kind of translates to I don't need a man sometimes.
Awesome, Ashley. I want to piggyback on your, I think we share some of a line in some of that experience. So growing up, again, I was raised by my aunt and my dad, their siblings. And she was kind of like just getting into the church. So sex was not really discussed in the house, even though I saw my dad actively dating and, being a Rolling Stone. But growing up in the church, it was don't have sex, you're gonna get pregnant. It was always shamed. So there was no point of, there was never a full circle moment of being sexually liberated. And it started to kind of show in my hotels in college, where it was kind of like you're just kind of breaking out, doing your own thing. And showing up in marriage, that those conversations that were lacked, that were forced by way of faith, so to say, and kind of showing up now. So it's really different to kind of master that part in a marriage, when for so long it was kind of bashed. And then once you kind of hit this certain age in life, you're like, so when are you going to have kids? When are you going to do this? It's like, so, oh, now you want me to have sex. Now you want me to know how to do these things that for so many years you told me did not exist, or I shouldn't do it, by way of, if you have sex, you're going to get pregnant. And that was always the worst case. I think that was something really different.
So based off of that, those experiences, church and family, how do you, when you're intentional about dating seriously, what things do you take from that guides your approach to selecting someone?
I mean, that's a good question. It's definitely like a topic that I think is out there, right? And so a lot of on dating apps in particular, you hear a lot of people say, I want a person that's God-fearing, or something like that, right? And I find that interesting. I always find that interesting, because I'm like, what does that even mean, right? Like, what does that look like? How does that show up in your actual relationship? And why is that a commandment that has to happen? And again, what is the linkage to healthy relationship, right? And so I'm always curious about that. For me, I want to know that a person is grounded, right? And so I like religion, right? Because I think religion actually shows that a person has the ability to be disciplined, right? Subscribing to only one type of religion, now that's, where things get a little rocky for me, right? But the ability to be disciplined and the ability to go after what you want and sacrifice for those particular things, I want to know that you have that concept, that you have that capacity. If that's how it plays out for me. I'm open to all kinds of people. Right now, I'm studying the religions and the faiths of the East. And it really seems like it's really about liberation. It's about understanding who you are, understanding what you will and won't let control you, right? And then how you offer all of you to the world. And so I love that concept. And I want to know that a person has the ability to see who they are and go after what they want based on principles that they've learned out there throughout their life. But I do find that sometimes the Christianity conversation or the faith-based conversation is a little bit limiting when it comes to relationships, because it hinders, in my experience, it hinders some of that real energy.
Yeah, I think it hinders too. And for me, it's kind of been a struggle, really, because even though I identify as Christian, because that's what I grew up, I'm not an active Christian, I guess. I'm Christian.
You're not financial. You're not financial.
No. I don't pay no money. I don't go to church. I believe in God, and I believe there was a man named Jesus, and that's probably all I currently believe for sure. But I don't like dating people who are like atheists. Like, I need for you to believe in something. Like, I need for you to have something. I honestly prefer people who have a Christian background, because like there's things I still do that are Christian. Like, I pray, every once in a while. I love gospel music, like love it. So if I'm in here playing like Hezekiah Walker, I need you not to be like, like I'm crazy or something. So like I prefer people who have a Christian background. Like, you gotta go to church, 'cause I don't go. But like if I say something, if I say like, the old church saying or something like that, because I'm still very much churchy, and sometimes in some of my behaviors, I need for you not to look at me like I'm crazy, or like, if I say like, God is good, I need you to be like all the time. Like, I need for you to know what the next sentence is. And I think I'm just like what you mean? Like, so I it's familiar. So I like the familiarity of a Christian background. I don't particularly need one to date, but you just can't be an atheist. I can't do it. I need you to believe in something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, from my perspective, because we was raised in the church, started churches, was on the boards of churches, like every day of the week we were in church. So mean, I credit that for a lot of things in my life, but definitely loving God and then understanding that you like the same gender, like that was a whole nother twist, because there was this whole reconciliation of, oh my God, that's a major sin. I'm going to go to hell. And so it took me up until my junior year in college to actually start like approaching or dating the same gender. And so I tell people, like, for those people who have to do this kind of reconciliation of who am I and those identity things, you start over at puberty. Even though I was about 20, I went back till I was 7 or 8 trying to understand, what does it mean to like somebody? How do you know what the signs are? When some people who they're already secure in their identity as a child, they go through learning how to date, kissing, having those first. So for me at 34, I'm just now getting to the point to where I know what I like, what I'll put up with, and when somebody is what it is for me. Because the other caveat for LGBT community is this hypersexualized piece, and you get to know somebody intimately before you know their last name or even their first name. And so when it comes to dating, because we haven't seen ourselves on TV, like I remember being on Yahoo Instant Messenger, right? We had these group chats, you were meeting people that way. It was like the beginning of online dating.
It was ASL.
Yeah, what's your age, sex, and location, right? You'd be like, okay. And so like you started building community, and even to this day, people that I met in those kind of spaces, because the small little hick town that I'm from, there was only one gay person that I knew was gay, right? He wore fingernails, had a short haircut, and you knew, y'all who from there know who I'm talking about, right?
That's my cousin.
And I was still in the closet, but he knew I was gay, right? Because we worked together at the famous Bob Harrell's, right? So it was one of those things where you didn't see yourself. And so my faith said one thing, and I love that community because that's where I was developed, and making a decision to be myself, like, would have taken me outside of that community. So it's been a long journey to get to my faith informing my approach to dating. But now I'm in the same place as Ashley. I'm an unorthodox Christian. I pull from all kind of religions to inform my daily practice. So I do what I want now, and people can think how they think.
And like for me, it took a while for me to get here too, because like no one teaches you how to date. I know my mom, my people did. Like no one taught me how to date. Like I literally went to college, started having sex, and was like, okay, so now I had sex with you. You supposed to like want me. Like that's the message I was getting. So when people were not doing that, it kind of like messed with me for a long time. Like, okay, so what's happening here? And I remember when I went through the whole purity phase. It's a whole book that was popular at the time. It was called "I Kissed Dating Goodbye" by this preacher dude who has now come out and was like, that was incorrect. But at the time, in like the early 2000s, 2010, it was very popular. And it was basically telling people who like in the church faith how you're not supposed to be dating because dating leads to premarital sex. And like, it was a whole thing. Like I read a book and I was following all the practices, all the principles in the book like an idiot. So like I didn't, and even after I started back having sex, I didn't really learn about what I like and what I wanted and how to date to probably like 30, honestly. Like now I'm very secure in who I am now and things I do now because I just, whatever, I don't really care. But prior to that, it was still a learning process. So I didn't get to who I am now to my 30s. My 20s was just all fucked up. I ain't have a clue.
Yeah. I mean, but to your point, Ashley, like nobody taught you. So for me, I didn't have, like, my mom was like a fair weather Christian. So sometimes she was saved, sometimes she wasn't. And then we might go to church this year, next year we not. And so it wasn't until, I got into middle school and I became immersed in church kind of on my own, with Farrelly, and that I started to get something, but it's not that deep rooted in me that it shaped how I date. How I was dating came from my examples. Like, there was no relationship in my house. It was just my mother. And then all of the marriages or relationships around me, I didn't want anything that looked like any of those. So my grandparents' relationship, they had been married for 50 years and that was abusive and no love. All the marriages within my family were not something that I wanted to, like, example. So for a long time, I didn't even want to be married. Like, let me just, do me and be out in these streets, and so having to kind of do all of that work, and I'm kind of self-reflective. So I'll ask my friends, how do you experience me? And at the time I was asking a lot of my guy friends, how did they choose their wives or the women that they had been in long-term relationships with? And so one friend in particular, he kind of told me, he was like, I can always tell the difference in dating a woman that grew up with some type of sound relationships around her or with a strong male figure in her life versus a woman that didn't. They treat me differently. They talk to me differently. They operate differently. Women who don't, they kind of tend to be very independent. I don't really need you. Not that they say it, but that's how they move and they don't realize it. And so trying to do that work over the years to kind of unlearn what I subconsciously learned and how it was showing up in the relationships that I was engaging or getting into. So that's where my foundation or approach to dating came from. It didn't really come from church. It just came from what I saw around me, and what I saw, I didn't want it. So I didn't have an approach. And so
can we celebrate that for just a second real quick? I just want to just one up you on that one. I thought that was very nice, because faith is a thing, right? Faith is a very big thing, but faith is one of the things that conditions how you approach life, right? But that
absolutely,
as Kendra was mentioning, like, there's all these other things that is pouring into us, and that really shapes how we approach life. And I just love the fact that you got to a point to where you can challenge how you've been conditioned, right? And then make that make sense as it relates to what you want out of life. I mean, I just want to applaud you for that one. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. And that's really hard to do for a lot of people too, to be able to try to say, like, listen, I might be fucked up. Like,
look, that's relationship 101. I'm
not
say
me.
That. Just that relationship 101. And this is not in any 101 relationship course, if there ever was a relationship course.
Yeah.
Right. But really tackling your vulnerabilities. Like, for me, that's where my whole life began. And Kelsey and I have had many conversations in our time together, but ultimately I had to go after some things in order to be a good person in any relationship. I'm talking about friendship, whatever relationship, any of my personal relationships. In order to be a good person in all of those, I had to go after some things that were hard for me, right? I didn't grow up with my mom in the house, and so that was hard for me. I grew up with a grandmother that was pretty stiff, and so that kind of left its own impression. And then my dad is Nigerian. He is, super principled, right? And so here you have an emotionless, principled guy, right? And so I'm walking into my relationships with high, a very high sense of responsibility, but a very low sense of empathy, connection, like all of those things that come with emotional intelligence. And so I'm like, hey, here's how it is. Here's how it's supposed to be in the story. So being able to tackle, wait a minute, let's go back to this mom situation. What does that mean? And how does that impact me? That's the only way I was able to welcome in some emotional intelligence. And I would say, I find in all of my relationships, going back to that place begins the level of real intimacy, right? And so I like this conversation about how we engage, because we're talking about money, we're talking about where we meet at, Cash App, we're talking about all these particular pieces, and none of that equals intimacy, right? And so that to me is the real science of it all: is how do we get to our intimacy faster?
So now when we recognize those things about ourselves, or because that comes with you just wanting to be better as a person, but wanting to be better for whomever you choose. Because it's all about, as I've learned, like that compromise, that like my brother likes to say, one of the things that he enjoys most about marriage is his wife challenges him on his shit. like the parts of him that doesn't work well with other people. But like his belief is that you don't get that when you're just with your friends or, you know, people that you work with, that your spouse or your significant other, they're going to call you to the floor on that and work with you. It's probably going to be some hard stuff, but work with you on the things that you haven't been able to self-reflect on and absolve for yourself. So even in that, like, so after we've done that work or we haven't done that work, like what things do we require, or what things do we look for at the core when we're choosing someone to date, whether it's casually or seriously?
Whew.
Heavy, huh? Heavy.
I used to have a long list because, you know, you have to write these profile things. I was trying to find my profile in my notes because it's super idealistic, right? And most of the time, half of the stuff in there I wasn't bringing to the table at the time that I wrote this. And it was really more about the humanistic side, because I think someone said earlier, marriage is like a business. And so you're trying to find somebody who can either you help propel or they help propel you. And when you put your 1 + 1, you get 2. It shouldn't be a deficit in that relationship. So for me, that's one of the most crucial things, is that you need to be able to add value to my life. And it's really not about love anymore. Like, I can learn to love you, but I am more at 34 concerned about what can I build legacy and get to a place where we both have the freedom to do whatever it is we want to do. So those are my primary focuses. Most other stuff we can work through and I can ignore. But if you're not driven, got some business about yourself, if you don't own anything, that won't work for me.
I'll say one of the things when dating my now husband, I looked for everything that I needed to work on in a person, because my mommy trauma showed up in different spaces. The church faith trauma showed up. So there were things that I knew that I liked and that I saw in other aspects that wasn't taught to me, that I did not see at home. So I intentionally seeked out the fact that my husband was by nature a provider. He would do all types of crazy things to get money, but he always made it happen. My dad was like that. So I saw it in a way, but not in a way that connected two people together. And the things that I knew I needed to unpack and work on were the things that I intentionally sought out in a lover. So, although my husband came by way of a friendship, it was totally unspoken and unseen, but knowing that internal reflection of what I didn't like and what I knew I needed to change, it was kind of like one of those things, like it's right under your nose. So the people I was dating that I thought I saw in them, it wasn't truly them. It was what they wanted me to see. It was their representative. And after a while, it wore off. And it wasn't truly them at the heart. So my heart kind of spoke to Ryan's. They kind of spoke to each other in the things that we talk about in our shared experiences, how we were raised and how those pieces kind of fit together. Because in the church, I definitely hate the fact that they don't teach you how to date with intention. They talk about all the other things that you shouldn't do. And I always think that religion, and I am a Christian, but I've always fought the nuance and that, you know, church is never full circle. They only teach you the things that keep you in line, but nothing that challenges you to think for yourself. So again, that whole thing, don't have sex, you'll get pregnant. But you skip the whole part of me dating, courting to get to my mate. And it's not as simple as just finding your person. There are going to be things in where you are not alike, where you're similar, and how to find that. And being sexually competitive is one of those things. But for someone who was not taught to explore her sexual proudness and how to get yourself off and get yourself together, I can't teach a man what I like if I don't know how to do it myself, right? So those were not the things that you're taught. It was just total opposite. Like, no. And it was as if not having these conversations, as if the Lord was just going to plant that seed of knowing into you. So I resented that piece. So with me dating, I intentionally seek the things that I needed to work on that this person naturally had that can help me bring that out into what I needed, because that was not a conversation I could have at home, because it was, well, my parents didn't believe in self-reflection. So it was quite different on trying to figure out, like, I know something's not right, but I'm going to fix it. I just have to figure out how to fix it. So I had to go through a lot of trial and error with a lot of frogs until I got to my prince, who is quite interesting.
I ride for Ryan, so yay.
Ryan, cool. Ashley said something earlier, and she was talking about like independence, and I kind of took that in a couple of different ways. Like, one, the liberty to be yourself, right? And just being in a space and developing your life and, supplying what you need to be your full self. But then Farrelly asked a question, and I don't know if you meant this question this way, but it definitely struck me. But you said something about, where do you see yourself? And all I thought about when you said that was, I see myself in places where I'm accepted. Right. I just did a TED talk on this, on the topic of acceptance. And it was so cool to really break down what acceptance, or what the idea of feeling accepted really, really means. And so I know I resonate the highest in spaces where I'm most accepted. Right. I expect in my relationship, and this is the one and only thing that I have, is that the person fully accepts me. Right. And it just accepts me, accepts all of me, and is willing to go down the journey of who I am, right? Just as I would be for that other person. I used to have a list of, man, my woman can't smoke, and my woman can't do this, and you know what I'm saying? My woman she can't be this, and I don't want no woman that ever, she didn't go to college, I can't do it. Like, I had all.
She can't be over 125 pounds.
That's crazy. I just so happen to date small women, but I like big women too. But I had all these rules. But as I was saying earlier, to be in a space with somebody that accepts you, that is some of the most loving time I've ever had in my entire life. Right? It's just,
but it hurts, Orock. It hurts because people think that accepting means everything is going to be okay, right? Mm-hmm. And in that space, being accepted doesn't mean that person always likes it. And sometimes in accepting it comes a challenge and support. Ryan and I are working that because we've grown together. So people think that being accepted is all, roses and dandelions in a field somewhere. And really, it's a rock under that grass that you're going to fall on and skin your knee up. Because
hold on. Who is Ryan again?
Ryan is my husband.
Your husband. Okay. So
yes.
So in essence, what I would say to that point that you just made is, and right? Because the rocks are gonna be there. The rocks are gonna be there.
Right.
The rocks are gonna be there. If you were single, you would have some rocks. Right? If you were single, you're gonna have some rocks. If you're in a relationship, you're gonna have some rocks. If you're married, you're gonna have some rocks. You and your mama got rocks. You and your daddy gonna have some rocks, right? Like, the rocks are gonna be constant, which means to me they're without saying. Right? The question is who you want to have those rocks with. Right? And so
100%. But I think in dating, when people say, I need you to have this list, they're expecting perfection and that there is not going to be a rock. So we have to be of a point of clarity to say that there is going to be, so like, just because you're seeking acceptance doesn't necessarily mean that the person is going to like it, and it is going to hurt. So there are some things. Yeah, but I think when some people think of acceptance, they think it's all la-la. Like, there's no civil discord, and there is. So that is a feeling word. Acceptance is a feeling word, like where it feels good. It feels good to be accepted. But to be accepted knows that there's going to be some challenges, and that's when it gets tricky for people.
I'm going to disagree in that regard, right? Acceptance for me is the total picture, right? And that's why I mentioned that part about the journey. I think one of the most vulnerable things I've ever asked a person that I was dating was, hey, are you willing to ride with me through this part of my life? Right. And that was the part where I was actually going through and actually tackling how my mother's relationship has manifested in my relationships. Right. And I knew it was going to be ugly. I'm in a relationship with this person, and I'm like, yo, I like you. I see you. I can't see a day where we're going to end, right? But I need to go through this. Like, this is probably one of the most important pieces of my life. And to me, that is a rock, right? I do believe in the concept of perfection, but like not perfection as it relates to the good side of the spectrum, but perfection as it relates to the entire spectrum. Meaning like somebody needs to know like, yo, if you subscribe to be my friend, you have to deal with my shit too, right? If I subscribe to be your husband, and I'm gonna have to deal with your shit too. And that's perfect to me, right? The subscription to it. And that's why I think like the discipline of religion comes in. Is like, yo, there's no end to this. Yeah, I'm arguing. I'm mad that the damn spaghetti cold or something like that, right? But at the end of the day, I love you and I'm going to be here. And that's never in question.
Right. And I don't think you find that, like, so this level of acceptance that you're looking for, I don't think you find on the surface level of dating. Because there is just so I remember being pregnant, and it was a moment where I needed an acceptable moment with my husband. And I just broke down crying, and he's like, what's wrong? And the whole thing was, I'm having this baby and I need to be 100% opposite of how I was raised. Like, I don't know where this moment came from. And it was terrible. It was just, and he was like, hey, I understand where you are, but you're total opposite. And I don't think that you get this conversation on surface level of dating. You're not going to get this with a person who's asking you to spend money to have a conversation with me. You're not going to get this with a person who, I don't know if I like you because you have this and this. This is the type of person who is like, I know some ugly shit about you that I'm willing to go there. And I don't think that this is the person that you're going to match with on Tinder, or someone who's requiring you to put forth these things, because this is way more valuable than any amount of money that you have, any type of cryptocurrency or anything.
I think this is a good conversation. I do think, at least for me, those are conversations I have to have. I have to give, my family is dysfunctional. Like, I have to, because those are the bigger parts of me. I have to I have to talk about my relationship with my father. I have to talk about my relationship with my mother, because one, I need to understand your relationships, because then I need to understand how to love you and how to show up for you in those ways. So if I am dating you, like, we have to have those conversations. I can't wait until, you're on your knee, or, we're 2 years in. Like, I can't wait for that. Like, first month, 2 months, we're having these conversations, because it's important. Because I don't want to wake up 2 years from now just finding out, oh, you have trauma from that. Like, this is why you've been acting that way. Like, I'm going to ask those questions. If you're showing up a certain way, and I'm going to start asking probing questions. Okay, well, how did y'all argue in your family? How did y'all fight? Because I need to understand how you're showing up, and I can't wait that long. So, and that level of acceptance has to happen for me earlier rather than later.
And I think for me, like, my situation is a tad bit different. So acceptance is big on my list too, just solely based off what I do for a living. So what I have found is men tend to, I don't know if intimidate is the word. I don't think they're intimidated. I just think some people aren't as open to certain things. And so they say they're open until they start talking to me. They realize, oh, you open. And then they're like, oh, I'm not that open. So for me, trying to find someone who's kind of, I guess, okay with what I do, and who wants to be a part of it, is like my biggest dating struggle.
So we really, really appreciate the robust conversation that you've added to our first episode of Last of the Millennials. We're probably right. We hope that listeners, you've gained a lot of perspectives today. And so we want to give Ashley and Orak opportunity to tell you how to follow them and join their platforms before we head out.
So I'm at Sex with Ashley. You type that in, I pop up everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Clubhouse, Twitter. It's all the same.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me once again. Great conversation. Love the energy in the room for sure. But you can follow me at Orock Twice, OROKTWICE, on all social media platforms. Love to engage with you. I'm always out there trying to find some new and unconventional ways to approach how we live this life, especially for my Black people out there. So thank you all for the conversation. Looking forward to many more.
I do appreciate you guys for contributing to the conversation today. This is going to be so important of what we want to do here with the last of the millennials, hashtag we're probably right, because most of the time we actually are. And I think that it's important that we're having these conversations to add to the culture, bring awareness to the culture. So to add awareness to the culture, to bring more conversation, like we were talking about earlier, that covered wagon. I had a teacher that always used to say an empty wagon makes a lot of noise. So let's start filling these wagons with these topics of conversation, so that, you know, the next generations and even people within our generation can have a more stable foundation to be able to talk about the things that are unspoken. So thank you guys so much for contributing today.
All right, and I'm Farrelly. Farrelly Speaks. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Farrelly Speaks. Be sure to follow the Last of the Millennials podcast on social media at We're Probably Right. And so thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we're probably right.